Lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
Hey guys, before we jump into the episode, I wanted to let you know it is brought to you by Denim. As a business owner myself, I personally know the importance of financial stability and preserving cash flow to help navigate through any freight market. With Denim's comprehensive service offering, you now have an all-in-one financial partner whose platform includes factoring, payments, freight audit, document collection management, and analytics, which help keep your business financially healthy and increase your team's time to focus on revenue-producing activities. You can also take advantage of Denim's free credit check, which they perform on all of your customers. And Denim will proactively reach out to you if they spot any signs of credit deterioration. Finally, Denim always pays your carriers first. As a broker, this is imperative to preserving your credit score in the market, which ultimately helps you become a broker of choice to your carrier partners. Are you ready to learn more? Visit denim.com to schedule a demo today. Just do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you.
This episode is brought to you by SPI Logistics, the premier freight agent logistics firm in North America. For over 40 years, SPI has been diligently building the most successful freight agent network to provide first-class relationships for our shippers, receivers, and carrier partners. We are more than another transportation network. We are a dedicated team of professionals united by one singular purpose, and that is to expedite our agents' success. All of our agents are set up for success on day one, as they are provided with a full suite of support staff that is ready to assist them with everything from after-hours emergencies to financial and administrative needs on a no-fee basis. This way, you can focus on continuing to grow your business. There is no financial risk to start, and you have the ability to earn up to 75% in commissions. If you are looking to take control of your financial future and build your business with the backing of one of the most successful logistics firms in North America, visit www.spi3pl.com to learn more. Do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Morning Show, the top morning show in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines, but most importantly, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals on this show because at the end of the day, you guys, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. We are going to get right into it, you guys. I got a special guest who's going to come on today because there are some major changes that are going on out there with the NMFC. It's always a tongue twister for me. And that's the National Motor Freight Classification. These are starting out in 2025. And my friends over at the NMFTA are here to talk about this, what it all means, and what you guys need to be on the lookout for. So I got my man, Nate Ripke, on the show. He is the Director of Commodity and Standards Development at the NMFTA. So Nate, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. It's great to be here today.
So I start off every single show like this, man. How did you get your start in freight? What brought you into the industry?
Sure. So I graduated college in 2009 in the middle of a recession. And the unemployment rate in my hometown in the Midwest was roughly 18%, right? So there was no going home. And I moved to Washington, D.C. looking for a job, right? With a degree in psychology, and the world is my oyster. And I interviewed for quite a few different positions, thinking I'd be an executive assistant, hired at a trade association, trying to wear many different hats. But anyways, I landed in Alexandria, Virginia. At the National Motor Freight Traffic Association. I had a 3-hour interview with the current or the present director of classification there. And we talked a lot about life and ended up landing a job and noticing that there's a ton of opportunity within the organization, fell in love with freight, and have been in it ever since.
Dude, I love that, man. And so coming in when you did, I mean, it was, because I started in 2011, I think is when I started off brokering freight. And, kind of seeing the changes and how everything's evolved over my career, the last 13, 14 years now at this point. This is, like with these changes that are coming here, man, these are pretty significant, because like I just look at it as somebody who I'm not an LTL expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I know enough about it. And I know that the NMFC codes are pretty major and getting those dialed in. So any changes to that, I think could lead to a lot of things. So, but before we get into any of those changes, you guys actually have some calls that are scheduled over the next couple of weeks where people can come and get more of an in-depth explanation of this, right?
Sure. Yes. We have listening sessions scheduled that you can sign up for on our website, nmfta.org. There's dedicated sessions Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of this week for specifically for the carrier audience on Tuesday, the 3PL audience on Wednesday, and the shipper audience on Thursday. And so I encourage any listeners to go to our website and sign up for it to be able to get the information firsthand from us, and also get involved in the process. The chance to comment, provide feedback, and come along the journey with us, as we continue to prepare for these changes in the first quarter of 2025.
So what led to this, man? What was it that the changes were decided that, hey, we need to roll these out and we need to simplify or streamline kind of what's going on in here?
Sure. So, to go back, I can only speak for, when I entered the industry, in 2009, I just remember that, it was a part of the conversation then, that the classification was difficult to understand, was complex. Back when the industry was regulated in the 80s and even before that, there were people that studied transportation that understand the nuances of the industry, and were dedicated professionals in a very specific role in LTL. That isn't the case anymore. With deregulation and just the current state of the market, there's a lot of people dipping their hands into LTL. There's a lot of less expertise, and some of the elements of the classification are just no longer relevant or current. And so we're looking to standardize our process and standardize the evaluation of the commodities. To match the current market and the current transportation characteristics of freight. And so our board, the NMFTA, has created this initiative over the last 3 years to reduce friction between shippers, carriers, and 3PLs, and simplify the classification.
So what do you think, or like, what have you guys heard out there that is the most confusing part of its current structure of it in freight classifications? Because like, I know, again, just speaking from my own personal experience in moving LTL freight that's out there, it seems like, your customer or the shipper might tell you what the code is, or, or what the classification is prior to pickup, but then the carrier arrives and then they change the classification of it at the time of loading, and then after the fact you get billed for it, and then it's inevitably a higher amount. Like I've never personally experienced where they've came in, they're like, oh, actually it's going to be cheaper now. Never had that happen. But like, what drives all of that confusion currently?
Sure. I think that lack of education is at the forefront. They also just understanding that it's a requirement, and when you're filling out an LTL bill of lading, there is some specific information that you must know and must follow. The freight class being one of them. If you're using class rates to determine your freight charges, and it is a voluntary standard. It is a tariff, and therefore if you're going to use it, use our services, that there's our classification book. It is trademarked, it's copyrighted, there is a fee involved to use it, and a lot of people just don't know that, right? And don't have access to it to get the process started.
Because I think like with what, because you guys can go to their website as well, and this is where I'm pulling this from, is just go to info.nmfta.org/2025-NMFCA-changes, and I'll put this link out there for people to click on as well. But the literal first thing that stands out to me the most here is it is simplifying it. that you guys are going to use a standardized approach based on density, handling, stowability, and liability that's going on out there. So when it comes down to like, let's talk about density and stowability. Are you guys now taking commodities that, you know, in years past were, for whatever reason, unable to be mixed up into the same, you know, they can't be stacked or whatever. But now, after hearing a bunch of it's like, no, we can actually stack this. We can double stack this. Or how does that look like? Kind of what came up with that?
Sure. So there's 4 transportation characteristics that are evaluated when determining a freight class: density, handling, stowability, and liability. And when, you know, currently in the current classification, the class rates are, many of the class rates are single classes based on an average density. And so there are a lot of unique descriptions that try to describe density to get to that single class. And our strategy for simplification and the reimagination process is to broaden some of those terms and capture them in, you know, in more general items when there's no handling, stowing, and liability. So we're not trying to split hairs and come up with a single freight class. We're going to let density determine the freight class in those instances, and the true shipment density and true shipment characteristics will drive the final class. And so using less words and more numbers to help simplify.
So was this something, who kind of brought this all to light? Was this just multiple listening sessions from carriers, brokers, and shippers alike that were like, hey, this is just turning into a massive Venn diagram on how do we even classify freight or bill freight? Or did it just kind of come to the point that where it's like, you know, we have to have more of a streamlined approach of it? And I mean, obviously there's going to be freight that, you know, hazmat, whatever, you can't mix it. There's going to be cross-contamination stuff that's got to come into play for, you know, multiple different commodities and stuff like that. But did you guys kind of come up where like, hey, listen, there more freight than not can be condensed into a single pickup and everything else? And like, kind of like what brought a lot of that to light?
Sure. So typically, you know, historically, as the classification staff had worked through to update the provisions of the NMFC, which has been done annually, you know, on an annual basis, you know, since 1936, they've looked at, you know, singular commodities as the transportation characteristics have changed, and really handled it, you know, on a piece-by-piece basis, sometimes addressing an entire commodity group where necessary, but we've never looked at the entire book as a whole to try to create relationships. And so at the start of this year, we did that, and, you know, we're able to itemize and categorize the classification and realize that a lot of the provisions are single classes, and a lot of them are based off of density alone. And so where that's the case, we've understood that and have developed a strategy to, you know, to reduce the classification, especially within what we call generic headings, which, you know, are kind of like departments in a store, right? That group general commodities, and giving us the opportunity to, you know, to condense and broaden, or I guess condense and allow us to standardize the approach across those commodities. But also, what's important, right? The biggest change in the beginning is going to be the move to density-based provisions when there's no handling, stowing, and liability. But another part of the strategy that's important and unique to LTL is that when we have identified these special characteristics, we're going to start calling them out. Today, you wouldn't know necessarily if handling, stowing, and liability were considered into the class assignments of the current NMFC. And so this will help separate and distinguish between the two different types of freight, so that when you start the conversation, right, on your NMFC, you'll know right away if you're dealing with a special commodity like pipe or hazardous materials, or you know, grading or road making materials that, you know, that have special characteristics that aren't general box freight.
So this is now, and I kind of want to shift this over to it from a shipper's perspective here for a little bit, Nate, where, you know, say I'm, you know, we're creating freight coach cookies. I don't know why I came up with that, but, you know, I've never shipped a pallet before in my life, and I'm a CPG company, and I'm looking to go out there, and I don't even know what an LTL is, but I know I just sold a pallet of this to Kroger that I need to pick up from my warehouse here in Phoenix, Arizona, and deliver it to their nearest distribution center. Am I able to go on and contact you guys to find out what the freight density is, what the classification is, and kind of get an information standpoint on this? And because I kind of want to start up and kind of build up from here from a shipper's perspective.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's a great point. Is that, right now, the shipper may not know where to look, right? When filling out a bill of lading, and part of us creating these listening sessions is to build that audience and to make people aware of what's going on and what services we have available to us. So the NMFTA offers classification assistance to all users, and if you provide us your product, a SKU number, right, something on your website that tells us what it is and how it's made and what its purpose is in commerce, we can provide you with an NMFC item number, what we call an opinion, right, to take back to your transportation provider and say, hey, look, I reached out to the NMFTA, they gave them my product, and this is how they say it's classified, and that information is generally accepted by the industry.
Yeah, because I think, again, it's how, and now I can only imagine the amount of people that are out here, Nate, that are like, wait, is this changing? And is this going to work against me? Right now, I was used to paying, and again, this is all hypothetical examples here, you guys. I want to be abundantly clear about that. But it was, hey, my freight was freight class 70, and I was paying $150 a pallet for a hypothetical example. But now I'm going up to $225 a pallet because now the new classification has now increased due to the density of it all.
Yeah, what we're going to be saying in our listening sessions is that your NMFC item number and your freight class may be changing, right, as a result of our changes in 2025, and that doesn't necessarily mean that your freight costs are going up. That means that what we believe with our strategy is that your freight class will match your transportation characteristics of your freight. Whereas if cookies were always the class 70, regardless of whether you had a density of 10 pounds per cubic foot or 5 pounds per cubic foot, right? It was based on an industry average. And now your freight class is going to be determined in those instances, whether it's referencing a density scale, it's going to be based on the actual shipment density. So if you can achieve a better density, you will get a lower freight class, which all things equal would be a lower freight charge and not a higher freight charge. So with our density scale, we're going to be expanding it, allowing for more freight classes, and some of them in some instances heavier freight class, right? Lower freight classes for heavier freight, and that would be advantageous to the shipper should they be able to achieve those densities with their shipment.
Because I think, like with some of the research that I've done before our call here, and again, the density, the freight class, that as a broker, that seemingly changes by carrier, and it can out there, again, this is just from my own personal experience. And from what I found is I personally think it's going to be an easier sale now to your customers because it's cleaning up a lot of the gray area. I truly think it does. And, because like LTL is, that's a massive part of the industry, right? Like it's not all full truckload out there. And sometimes you're going to, when you're out there prospecting, they're going to let you know like, hey, we're LTL only, or, and you need to know enough about this because, the reality is when you're building a business out, man, your first opportunity isn't going to be a full truckload, Atlanta to Chicago, 20,000 pounds, first come, first serve. Like you have to get out there. And this is a great reference point for you. And I think for every provider to get out there and have a better understanding about what this looks like, because LTL is a major part of the industry and it's going to continue to be a major part of the industry. And now I also, I think of it from an innovation standpoint as well. Is this going to help grow out other modes of transportation? Because like Sprinter vans, for example, that's a growing mode out there where people, it's loaded on the same truck. Some of these guys aren't necessarily, held to the same DOT standards because it's, below 10,000 pounds gross vehicle weight and everything else. And I think like this makes it a lot more clear about how freight should be transported. And I think that this is going to I personally think this cleans up a lot of billing. I don't think it's going to add any layer of confusion to anything.
Yeah. Well, the, in the industry, it's very common now to have multimodal measuring devices, and regardless of what scale you're entering into the industry, as a shipper, as a third-party logistics company, or as a carrier, there are tools out there that that you can use, right? Whether it's simply a tape measure, or you need to move into a different type of automated device, depending on how sophisticated your operation. These tools are available to you out there. And instead of having to determine whether your shipment is knocked down or set up, whether it's nested or not nested, or how many united inches, whether it's in the white or the different manufacturing stages of wood, all those are terms that are currently in the classification that we're looking to eliminate and resolve with an evaluation of simply density, handling, stowing, and liability. Right. So making the provisions easily understandable, and calling them out when we don't simply have general box freight. And so we're also revamping our online version of the NMFC called Class IT to better provide search results, with these changes that are coming up, and providing density calculators once you've determined your proper search terms, and if density is required, that you'll be able to put in your inputs and get straight down to the subprovision and freight class of your commodity. And if you can't, understand that we have resources available to help you get that final answer, so that you have the proper information at the start of the shipment life cycle to properly classify it and hopefully rate it, right, and reduce any potential invoices should your information be accurate from start to finish.
Do you think this makes it more competitive on the carriers from a pricing perspective now that there is going to be kind of more of a streamlined approach out there? Because, just like with everything, man, in the free market, where, one LTL carrier might price that one move at $200, and then the next one's at $400, and then the next one's at $110. It's just like in the full truckload market. Some people are at $2,000 and then $1,800 and $2,300. There's multiple different pricing that's out there. Does this open that up to make are carriers going to have to become more competitive with their pricing now that there's kind of more of a standard that's out there, or does this not really change anything from their point?
Sure. Well, I did start the NMFTA, spent 7 years at a carrier, and then came back to the NMFTA. The classification doesn't consider economic factors per se, right? When it's making its class assignments, and so I have to kind of throw that out there before I respond. But what happens is that when there's bad information, right, or misinformation, the carriers have to build in risk. And I think that this provides an opportunity to get more accurate information up front, which will lead to more accurate data, will result in better pricing, right? All the way around. I believe, that's a common message in pricing departments, throughout the industry. So I think that this process will, allow for, and these changes will allow for the freight class to be a true representation of the shipment's characteristics. Whereas, in the past, we're dealing with a static average from the last time that the shipment was that commodity was ever evaluated, if ever, by the organization.
Yeah, and I think like what you said right there is possibly the most important point of all of this is when's the last time you've evaluated how your freight is actually transported as a shipper or even as a broker, right? I think that sometimes we always look for that autopilot style of transaction, right? Where it's like, oh, hey, I have a great relationship with this carrier. They quote us this every time. The customer's seemingly happy with it until they're not, right? And then somebody else comes in and says that, oh, we can actually do it for less, or we can give you a higher discount. And I think that this opens up for a lot of companies out there to reassess kind of how they're doing things and clean up a lot of it, right? Because I don't think if somebody out there can say that LTL is a seamless transaction, I would love to have them come on the show and really break it down for me, because I personally struggle with the amount of changes that can happen for seemingly one pallet that weighs 180 pounds and shit like that, you know? But I
Sure.
think like any way to kind of clean this up and really standardize a lot of this stuff, I think is going to have I think it's going to have a win across the industry of this, you know? And then again, you got to think ultimately, for the most part, how does this affect the end consumer? You know,
Mhm.
because that's ultimately who, you know, it's us as the individual who are going to the store. And I think that if that can identify a more cost effective way to transport goods now, I think everybody out there, every shipper in North America is going to be pushing back now to be like, hey, we got to really dive in deep on this, because transportation is a major spend for a lot of companies, right? Not everybody can pass along that expense to their customers and everything else. So I think this really opens it up as a way for people to kind of look at their budgets now as well, starting in 2025, and see like maybe there is some cost savings that are going to come their way with this.
Sure. And I think that if you're shipping LTL, you need to understand a few things. That for one, it's important for many reasons that you properly identify your freight, and alerting your transportation provider, whether it's third party or straight to a carrier, that truly what you have, not FAK, not general goods, right?
Yeah.
But I'm shipping cookies, I'm shipping, brass, bronze, or copper, right? Ingots, whatever the commodity may be, that you share that information. And what's unique about LTL, right, is that we're co-loading freight inside of a trailer that's going to be handled multiple times through the carrier's facilities as it goes from from origin to destination. And so the classification not only provides freight classes, right, but each commodity description has unique packaging requirements, and to make sure that the freight is properly protected as it moves through transit. And sometimes those packaging requirements change the characteristics of the freight. And so when you're shipping LTL, it is complex at times, because there's multiple things to consider. And what we want people to know through this process is that we do provide a place to go and find this information, to get the accurate information at the time of shipment. And we hope that we can become the Siri, right, for an LTL freight shipment. That if you need to know your freight class, if you need to know if you need help gathering your dimension, you need to know the minimum package requirements. That we have a place for you to go and to gather that information, no matter where you're entering in, no matter where you're entering into the industry, whether you're trying to fill out a digital bill of lading, or whether you are simply just trying to obtain a freight class through a brokerage.
Now, I think that, this is one of those scenarios where, I'm not going to say it's like resetting the industry or anything like that, but I think this adds a lot of clarification out there from what could be considered a very confusing mode out there, and, benefiting the shippers, the brokers, and the carriers alike on here about kind of streamlining this. And again, like you guys, the whole point of this podcast is education. All right. And me bringing these guests to you guys as the audience to listen into these things, to be able to then take it and then bring it out to your customers, because there are going to be plenty of shippers that are out there who aren't aware of this, right? And this is a great angle for you guys to lead in to help prepare them, to kind of help separate yourself out there in the business development phase of things. But again, I think everybody needs to jump on these. There's 3 sessions that are out here, you guys. The ones for carriers are tomorrow. 3PLs are Wednesday the 7th, and then the shipper session is Thursday the 8th. And go to the NMFTA's website, you guys, to register for these and check them out right now. But Nate, I appreciate you joining me, man. How does anybody do they just go to a specific part of your guys' website to register for this? And this is all free and everything, right?
Yes, that's correct. The information is free. If you go to the NMFTA website, which is nmfta.org, you'll see that right when you arrive at our website, that you can sign up for the listening session. There's a button to click right at the beginning, outlining the major changes to the NMFC in 2025, and go and register for the appropriate session based on your business.
Perfect. And I'm putting that all in the chat right now for you guys. So whoever's monitoring the clicks at the NMFTA, I'm sorry if I just spiked up yours just by clicking on it. And but I wanted to put that out there on the YouTube channel for you guys just to go in if you guys are watching it. And if you are a carrier, shipper, or a 3PL, just go in there and click on those links, you guys, and register for this event that are coming up.
Great. And anyone that's listening to the podcast after the session dates, that information will also be available on our website for download after the listening session.
Perfect. Nate, I appreciate you joining me. And for some reason, you guys know, if you guys can't find this out there, just hit me up. I will gladly put you guys in contact with my friends over at the NMFTA, who are truly spearheading so much in the industry. You guys got to follow them all on social media, connect with them, sign up for this information, you guys, because this is all stuff that will affect your business inevitably. And but Nate, thank you so much for joining me. And you guys, we got a major announcement that's coming out here this week. I'm kind of waiting until later this week to announce it, but there's going to be some great things that are coming your guys' way. But as always, if you guys got value in what you heard, subscribe to the show, you guys. Share it out there to your network, because if you see value, your network's going to see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.